Should we stop trying to evolve within the world?
What do you mean by that?
Within the system that we live in.
Yeah. Okay. So within the system that we're living in. Yeah, it's a good question, because I think that it's very important to understand the actual, what do we imply by evolution, because most of the people see spiritual evolution kind of separate from life. Yet the most important is to bear in mind that whatever we have as a system, as a world at the moment, is the kind of a cumulative creation of the collective consciousness or mind. So each of us contributes to this collective. That's why, in a way, it shows whatever we face, see, whatever we experience, that's the collective consciousness's experience. And if we want to evolve, it's a must to embrace the world, to understand how what our individual input is, and how our individual consciousness shapes, first of all, our own reality, our own circumstances, and only after that, how that contributes to the collective. Definitely when we come slightly out of the collective by, for example, say having refined our own perception, we might feel slightly distant or disconnected from the collective. So what we do, we usually try to oppose ourselves, so try to say that we don't belong to the world. Yet our thoughts and emotions are certain waves that still contribute to the collective, whether we want it individually or not. So in a way, it's kind of a silly thing to try to separate yourself from the world. I personally think that it comes from a unhealthy, corrupt perception of self, which is called victimization. I talk a lot about it in my transmissions and otherwise. Also, spiritual or emotional narcissism, again, which is based on victimization and a corrupt sense of self. So when we have that kind of a corrupt perception of the world, we do not see that the actual world is kind of neutral, because the world is not that veiled way we perceive it. It's actually the nature. So the more you refine, the more you understand that the basis or the basic, the foundation of the world is the trees, the sun, the moon, all this, what is surrounding us. But the monstrosity of our creation on the top of that is what makes most of the people who have awakened and refined themselves see it as something really negative. Yet if we have always these virtues and desire to kind of cultivate positivity, or we sort of chase happiness, why then the whole world is filled with misery and unhappiness? Is because in this day and age, which is, for example, in Siddha literature or Vedic literature is called Kali Yuga, is the age when the collective, it's like a collective judgment day, where everyone is able to see their essence, the corrupt essence. So there is no need to try to pursue something like on a horizon, like happiness or positivity, when there is a lot of internal negativity, which is coming to the surface and sort of slams into our face. Yet we say, no, I don't want to face it, I don't want to deal with it. So the whole point of spiritual evolution is to, at this point, at this day and age, as I see it, is to face that which usually we avert from, to face self, to face own corruption, and to understand how that corruption finds its way outwards and finds its way to manifest the collective, and that world that we so to speak, despise and kind of avert from. So the more we embrace the darkness, the more we have actually an opportunity to refine self, neutralize the perception, and then contribute that neutral or equanimous perception to the world. And so if that would be the case with the majority, the world would be a bit more of a balanced phenomena. But at the moment it is imbalanced because everyone wants happiness, success, and positivity without realizing the roots of the misery, which is that hidden negativity. That's why all this negativity becomes, so to speak, occult within each individual. And their inability to notice, to become aware of that, shapes this world sort of unconsciously. When you awake, that which has been occult and hidden becomes, or gradually comes into your consciousness. So you become aware of your ancestors, of your negative emotions, positive emotions. You become aware of all that which attaches you to the world, because there is nothing wrong with the world. It's neutral in its essence. There is nothing wrong with the experience. The problem is the attitude, the perception of the experience, the processing of the experience, and the certain way of attachment or impressing either onto that experience or having that impression of the experience on your own individual consciousness. That's my perception.
So the way I'm seeing it is we can evolve on the earth rather than in the man-made world.
Yeah, well, each man has their own man-made world. And so that's why spiritual evolution can never be standardized. The principles of the anatomy of the body is sort of standard for everyone. The key to evolution is sort of similar, but the path itself, which means that process of awakening and self-refinement, is individual, because it's defined by the individual perception, by the individual corruption, by the individual, collage of emotions, thoughts, and stories. So the world, I mean, can we escape from the world? That's a question. Can we escape? We cannot escape. So the world is kind of a one dimension of illusion, but it's neutral in its nature. It's defined only by the conscious perception of each individual. That's why when you talk about the world, you talk about your world with your archetypes in it, with all these people in it, with all the circumstances, and how these circumstances, people, are played out within your reality. And so does everyone else. So they have to first awake to their world and deal with their world, which means understand what obstructs them from perceiving the world neutrally, in an equanimous way. Because the ultimate reality is it's blissful, it's empty as well. It emanates something that is difficult to describe, yet it's so neutral, because it doesn't, it's not relevant for the world of emotions, world of feelings, world of thoughts. And all these worlds, emotions, thoughts, and feeling worlds, are in the form of waves. So they are in a way self-created. They are created by human beings throughout those years of corruption and degradation. So right now it's just a result of all the process. And some individuals who want to awake at this point, that's their choice. Whether they realize it at this point consciously or don't realize it, that's the journey they've chosen. That's where they're born here. But this is just a minority, because the majority create that what is within them, and they live it, relive it. So everything is right. That's the point.
So there's almost like another level now on top of, so you've got the earth and then you've got the man-made world, but then on top of that there's the illusion that we're all fed, which is the media and everything, and then people buy into that as being the world. So it's first you've got to recognize that this mass culture that we've all been pushed into with televisions and smartphones and all this, that's obviously an illusion. And then behind that, then there's all the emotions and all the feelings and all of this baggage of history and all this that's maybe real or not. And then to go beyond that within yourself to the natural, to the earth, to the nature. And would you then say to then transcend that as well?
Well, first of all these smartphones and TV and all, again, it's a creation of the collective. It's the way the collective channels whatever bits and pieces of their creative sort of distorted power is left there. So when you aren't connected with the root of the self-being, and you are nourished through that root, and the root, as I explained through other videos, is our ultimate being. Many people who just ignorantly try to retell the teaching of the medieval times do not understand the essence of that, because that's not their experience. They look for a root of the human being in their tailbone or the lower abdominal area, but the root of the being is that ultimate, which we are to reconnect through the self-awakening or the awakening in general. And through the process of that reconnection, we're able to see all that which is illusion. You cannot say that this is illusion and that is illusion if you are not awake, because that would be just your reality. And most of the people support it because they're simply bored of life. The education system, the political system, the system of family and organization in general does not support any kind of proper channeling or development of creative energy or development of intelligence in a different way. So all these means like media and other, they are tools to suppress that development of intelligence and to turn your focus onto entertainment and sort of filling in the gap. This gap, the longing that people have, that's why they are so much interested in the occult and all this new age spirituality, because they don't know where else to look for answers, and yet they never find it there. It's impossible to find it there either, because without being reconnected with the essence of the self, you cannot objectively, so to speak, look at the world and say it's illusion. Only then, because your perception at that point of awakening is the actual yoga, or the integrated perception, where you do not divide reality into good or bad. You don't see, oh, am I happy now? I'm not happy. There is no judgment, or that's kind of veiled by thoughts or emotions perception. So what you perceive at that point is just a natural being, natural consciousness, natural mind. The words are different, but the essence is the same for those, of course, who have that experience. For the others, it could be, okay, I want now to cultivate natural mind, and the other says, I want to awake, but they speak about one and the same thing. So once you have that experience, everything sort of falls off right away. And from that perspective, you're able already to see, yeah, well, my conscious power is attached to certain objects, to certain ideas, to certain stories. You start digging within and you start kind of going through that rubbish that you've self-created. You realize that all these ideas are based on self-punishment, corruption, victimization, boredom, procrastination, and whatnot. And so, but again, some people do not realize that this is not some kind of an entertainment either. Because at the moment, there are these two perspectives on spirituality. One is, again, entertainment, where people go into drugs, misuse all kinds of substances, and dream, hallucinate of spirituality, or talk about unicorns and different kind of entities without really understanding what they're getting involved into. And the other part realizes, but that's a very small part of people who have the experience and realize that how difficult and tedious this process of awakening and refinement actually is, and how truly rare that is as well. Because awakening is not about some kind of a one-time transmission. It's something much deeper that most of the people don't realize. And so they think that if they go for some kind of Shaktipat retreats, or they hear the word Shaktipat, the transmission, they fall for it. And they believe in some kind of a quick 1 weekend enlightenment. It doesn't happen. Because to break through this illusion, as you speak, is so difficult. It's like to try to, break through this gravitational field of self-negativity. And even though you may say that this negativity is all over and this is a part of the collective, yes, it is so, because each drop contributes into it. But after all, you have to deal with it yourself. You have to see the root of your personal negativity and how it plays out, how it creates your personal illusion. And so when people step on this path, they have to realize also that this is a very long process, a very tedious process, because it has taken people thousands of years to become corrupt, to create all this false ideas, stories, concepts. So how many years should it take now to refine from this, right? Because after all, the essence of this world has never changed. It has always been neutral. It has always been one and the same essence. It's neutrality. But what we've built, like you said, on the top of it and on the top of it was the result of the corruption. Because the spiritual being, the reality, neutrality, it's a simple way of being. That simplicity is always there. But why it has become more and more difficult to access it is because our individual consciousness and mind are filled with complexity. And so we have created these veils after veils of illusion. That's why it takes sometimes long time to realize that, yet this principle of knowledge passed through transmission and parampara sort of principle is still alive in some bits and pieces. And so that's why this kind of experience is still possible. According to the Vedic calculation, we're only 5,000 plus years into Kali Yuga. So if, according to the Vedic calculation, we're supposed to have 432,000 years of that, so what other illusions we would create further is a big question.